We're kind of doing something new. We got off of one of the talks about what God expects from us, and that would be to love. Thank you. Forgot that one. Is to love perfectly, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of expanding that a little bit. But one thing I want us to share with you is that I think everything we do at Central Christian Church always seems to serve a purpose. I mean, everything we do. When we gather here in worship, when we go meet with our groups to study Scripture and to understand fully what the teachings of Jesus are all about, when we meet with other people, whether it's at our Sunday school classes or discipleship classes or men, women groups, we gather in our homes, or whether we are with our friends in the community, that serves a purpose. Even when we pause in the moment of every day just to kind of converse with God or interact with God, everything that we do serves a purpose. And that purpose is to help keep us grounded, is to help keep us humbled. It's to put us in a position where we remember who we are as God's children, who created us for a reason. And that reason is to express God's love perfectly with our love. So why is it important that we do all these things? It's important because it is God who needs us to participate. Before Jesus' death in the Gospel of John, Jesus turns to God in prayer. In the course of that prayer, he said this: "As you sent me into the world, so now I send them into the world." So yes, Jesus sends you to reflect God's perfect love and to do it with confidence, which is why we spent 2 months talking about how we need to learn how to love perfectly. Now, since then, I've had a lot of people ask me what exactly does that look like? What does love look like? And it's kind of funny because in our Bible study on Wednesday night, one of the people was saying to me, was asking a question out loud. It was kind of funny, but it was a really good point. She says, now, if we're all supposed to love perfectly, does that mean I'm supposed to invite my husband's ex-wife over for dinner? That's a good point, isn't it? I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice if all of our actions of love were always motivated by warm, fuzzy feelings of hope and goodness. But that's not always the case, is it? It hardly ever seems to work out that way. But negative feelings, we can say this, that we harbor for other people are not of God. So in some of the cases where our feelings aren't where they should be, love that we express to those has to be a little more thought out, a little more planned, a little more intentional. And these intentional acts of love, as small as they may be at first, over a course of time will begin to change our negative feelings that are not of God into feelings of confidence and assurance that come from God. So imagine if our negative feelings begin to change with each act of love that we perform, to the point that maybe we could just maybe invite your husband's ex-wife over for dinner. Wouldn't that be a great story of faith to share? So what are we talking about? This perfect love. What does this perfect love look like? I'm going to give you Paul's thoughts on this as we going to invest in the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Here's the familiar text. Listen to Paul. Not only talking about the importance of love, but defines what love is. Now, if I can speak in tongues, mortals and angels, but I don't have love, I'm just a noisy gong or clanging cymbal. if I have all the prophetic powers, if I understand all the mysteries and all the knowledge, if I have all the faith so as to remove mountains, but I don't have love, I have nothing, nothing at all. And if I give away all of my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but have nothing, that have no love, I've gained nothing. So love is this. It is patient, kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. Love is not irritable or resentful. Love does not rejoice in the wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. We're going to kind of really investigate what those words and definition, what that definition means. But in a nutshell, Paul says that perfect love is. It is patient, kind, rejoices in truth, it bears, believes, hopes, and endures all things. But he also tells us what perfect love is not. It's not envious, it's not boastful, arrogant, rude. It does not insist on getting one's own way. And so perfect love is not irritable, it is not resentful, nor does it rejoice in the wrong. Now, I want to say a quick note about perfect love. Perfect love always considers other people first. Imperfect love only has a tendency to see our own selves, our own feelings. And I want us to keep these two things in our mind as we start to break down what perfect love is, beginning with love is patient. This is a simple one for all of us. Am I right? In this room, we are patient people. I can feel it already. Everybody's looking at their watch, see if worship's over. It's got to get the donuts. Let's go. Let's go. Patience really, for me, is allowing someone or something to develop, to grow, to mature at its own pace, not our pace. You see, and I think that's the problem is right there. I want to take a simple analogy of a farmer. A farmer places a seed in the ground, right? Then she waits. Now, there's certain things that she can do, right, to encourage that seed to grow. Things in her control. What would that be? Water. Okay, water, fertilizer, what else? Sun, you need some sun in there. You can pull those weeds out so all the nutrients and water doesn't get absorbed and junk doesn't refer there, right? But then there are things that are outside of her control, outside of her power, which is what? Weather, growth. She can't make that seed grow, can she? No? So, does yelling at the seed help it grow faster? Does pulling it out of the ground and beating it help? No, not really. She can do what she can do, and she allows the seed to do what it can do. So why doesn't she become angry, and why doesn't she become impatient with this process? Because she what? She understands. She understands what the seed is capable of doing and not doing. She knows not to expect to put a bean in the ground and then the next day come back to an 18-foot stalk of corn. She will not expect that seed to do something it is not capable of doing. She will do her part to encourage it and allow the maturity to take place on its own time. She understands the process. With understanding comes patience, whether it's a seed or a person. And sometimes we treat seeds better than people. Okay? I remember seeing a woman at the mall spanking her 3-year-old son, right? She had him by the hand. He was dangling his feet, and she was swatting the backside of him. And he was wiggling and screaming and hollering and crying, and everybody just stopped and stared. And for every swat, she would say, "Act your age." Is that a picture of patience to you? No, I want us to remember what we had up here. Perfect love considers others first. Okay, let's see how this plays out. Imperfect love considers only the self first. Now, it's very obvious to everyone in this room, as it was obvious to everyone in the mall, but not so obvious with the mother that the boy was acting out, right? This woman, this mother, obviously had an unrealistic expectation of her son. She was really wanting him to act her age. That tends to happen with us. She lacked an understanding of her son's capabilities, and so she was only focused on what she herself wanted to do, not her son. So imperfect love here really considers the self first, okay? Now, let's turn this story on you. Here's the fun part, right? Visualize yourself at the mall and seeing what I just described to you. How many of you, like me, would have been irate, would have been angry, possibly even saying a few things, if not under our breath, to that person, if we had the courage? Anybody? Is that just me? Am I the only one that's in this boat here? Yeah. Yeah. All right? Think about how you would respond to the situation. So let's look back a little bit. In reality, this woman was very likely repeating behavior that was taught to her in her growing up years, okay? So to be angry, to be rude, to be resentful, to judge her even, to solve absolutely nothing with the person who does not understand what she is doing wrong. It just leads to our being resentful, being angry. So obviously, there's some kind of intervention that needs to take place to help this woman become a better person. That always seems to be the critical steps that are missing in life, and that's what the role of the church is supposed to be with each other. Now, having said that, it was probably not a good idea for me to go in to intervene, even in a positive way, or I would be the one who was dangling with my hand, getting beat on the backside by this angry mother. But what's something we can do? And at the very least, what we can do as an act of love is not to be rude, not to be irritable, not to be resentful. Because to be that would extend imperfect love. I want us to think through this because our patience, it might grow within us if we begin to invest our time to understand a person's story, whether it's their past or what they're currently going through. That causes people to do things that may cause us to be impatient with them. But it requires effort, doesn't it, to do that? But I want us to understand this, that effort equals understanding. Understanding equals patience. Patience equals love. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about how love is also kind. But this week, I want you to work on something. I want you in your daily life, whether it's at home or whether it's at your work or wherever you might be, when you begin to be impatient with someone, I want you to just stop and take or make that effort to know what's going on with that person, either in their past or what they're currently going through. And see if that doesn't help you be a little more patient with them. because they might not be capable of doing what they're being asked to do. Try that and let me know the results. So pay attention to these words.